All right. Welcome to Dorsey's Resource. It's gonna be a freelance topic. Let me see if I can get some more light in here. Switch the other way. Oh, what a big difference. Okay, that looks better. See if we can bring that in closer. We'll lift this up. Ooh, that looks better. Oh, looks like that'll work. Greetings, everyone. I want to thank you guys for joining me, those who continue to follow, who are subscribed. First, before we get started, I'd like to give a disclaimer. This video is for entertainment, informational, and educational purposes only. Please understand everyone's individual circumstance or situation may be different. It's up to every individual competent person to please do his or her own homework and research regarding the matter being discussed. This information is not to be construed as legal advice. In the event, you need to seek a competent professional. It is encouraged that you do so at one's own leisure. Dorsey's Resource is not liable or responsible for any misuse of this information. With that being said, these are simply my thoughts and opinions on the topic. So, let's get started. This is just going to be a freelance discussion. You can follow me on Facebook at Dorsey's Resource. I'm on Twitter at Dorsey's Resource. I'm not on Instagram yet. And then, of course, on YouTube. And I was looking to move to other platforms, but as previously discussed, I don't know if that's going to be a definite, but I will let you guys know down the road. So without further ado, I just wanted to kind of address the previous video. I kind of spoke in cryptic code about some things or whatnot. You may have saw in the comment section someone had stated that they wish they knew what I was talking about. It was in regards to a private event that I had attended some years back, which shows credibility or whatnot. And I just wanted to, provide some insight as to some things that was concerning to me regarding dealing with the private sector. There really was an event that I attended, and I want to say, as independent media, I don't really necessarily claim to be an independent journalist. I'm a commentator. I give critique. I do research, and I just form my opinion about things. You have many different content creators on YouTube, and some of them have websites and other things. They're on other platforms, other web hosting platforms. So I just wanted to give my insight. And if in case you're wondering about my credibility, I have friends that spent time in the military. I didn't originally know this at first. I didn't discuss this when I first met them, but I found out years later as we got to know each other better, as we relayed information back and forth, they had secret clearances. And that's how people, in case you're wondering, how independent media, or known as alternative media, is not always fake news. We do have sources out there, people who tell us things, that this shows credibility. It shows that we have reliable sources, reliable information, and some of us study or can study a plethora of information from different backgrounds. So just keep that in mind. But I wanted to give you guys some information. Once again, this is a freelance video, freestyle, open topic, open forum. Even though I didn't put Q&A, you can chime in case you have any questions, the few that are watching or whatever. I recommend to please check out Pastor Lindsey Williams. Check out his information on YouTube to provide credibility behind some of the things I've discussed. Some things I can't go in depth with. You have to look these people up, like documentaries. A lot of times the reason I mention them is they will help you connect the pieces together as to what's really happening behind the scenes out here with this so-called shadow government. And I wanted to do a separate video down the road, but I'm gonna kind of include some snippets in this video. There's some people out there that don't think that the Illuminati exists. They think that it's just a myth or fairy tale. And remember, it's kind of like a pseudo term that's used to describe an elite people or ruling class elite. Some may refer to as the globalists, or I like to say a globalist syndicate, or think of it as a international crime family or crime cartel. They're comprised of bloodlines. So not necessarily dealing with family, but I was used the term bloodlines better describes. You have to be of a particular genealogy. But there is, when some people have been accused of being part of the Illuminati, a lot of people don't understand the role that the secret societies play. They're like the people at the bottom, sometimes in the middle. Now, some of them can be high up, like some people who are Freemasons, but keep in mind that there are secret societies above Freemasons too. You know, like the Shriners. I hear there was a most worshipful master I met some years ago. I never officially went through initiation, but he went over some things and was explaining to me privately. You weren't supposed to have a membership with both particular branches, but however, a lot of men or people do this privately. Like when I was in college, I was going to go through the initiation, the pledge to be a Phi Beta Sigma. I was going through the process, and I didn't follow through because the due money was expensive. You had to pay dues, and I didn't understand at the time. They were telling me there's ways to pay it, and I understand the camaraderie that's involved, that you develop connections with people that can be lifetime connections that can assist you and help you out. But there also is another thing people don't discuss when it involves secret societies, is that there is a dark side that involves people privately that you might not be aware of that have been initiated, and how independent journalists or commentators and people find out this information is if you read a lot of newspapers or international news, and you've known about the Illuminati's infrastructure for years, dealing with the Davos group out of Switzerland, the Bilderberg conference that happens every year. It's an annual event, generally at the beginning of June. And the Davos group is like the public side version of the Bilderberg. They're like the Daylight group, where the Bilderberg wanted to be more private, but they became public because of journalists covering them in the past. So they eventually had no choice. So some of the media outlets had to cover them, but they still keep it to a minimum. They don't want, like, whenever it goes on MSNBC or CNN, they won't report on it. Like, if you remember some years back when Hillary and Obama were running against one another in the primaries, and remember, it was in the news that they both disappeared, and the mainstream media was saying they didn't know where they were at. But some of us who studied this information found out a little bit shortly thereafter. They were at the Bilderberg meeting in Chantilly, Virginia, at this Marriott hotel. And they generally, whenever there's an election year in the United States, that's when they would have a Bilderberg meeting, and it would generally be located in Virginia, because Virginia is the military-industrial complex, or part of it, like with Maryland. If you study, learn about some of these things. I didn't originally know this at first, but this is also in books. So there's people out there that'll try to steer you away from learning this information. But I want to let you guys know there's credibility and behind the information I discussed, as well as other content creators, that is reputable, solid information that you're not going to find in the mainstream liberal control media, which is primarily mostly one-sided. Which journalism, a lot of journalists, when they go to school, there's supposed to be a rule where it's supposed to be unbiased, and that's even for lawyers as well. There's something that I found out for both. I don't remember specifically, but I do know that in both crafts, they're supposed to be unbiased, because, you know, giving a critique of information. So I try to be to the best of my ability. That's why I say many times, I'm not a registered voter. I just give my critique from the outside looking in. I canceled my voter registration some years ago, which is a contract. By the way, I don't want to be attached to the negative consequences behind it. I did research. I found out. I won't go into that in this video, but I've already mentioned it in previous videos. And I'll say this: I uplift the process of voting for those out there who do participate. However, there's some things that is not mentioned to the general public and the general public sector who, you know, is not meant for them to, I guess, by the ruling class, to learn this information or whatnot. But keep in mind, there really is a ruling class elite that does exist, that has been around for centuries, for a very long time, that do manipulate things from behind the scenes. And I want to let you know, I'm not paranoid. I'm not crazy. I was a top student years ago in middle school. I gave that example. 7th grade, I was student of the month. Teacher surprised me at the end of the year. 8th grade, I had perfect scores at the school I went to at the time in Detroit, Evangel Christian Academy. I had the highest scores in the class. My teacher at the time, Mr. Milioni, he had a percentage system And then when I went to freshman year, that was my last year there at Evangel. I had all A's and B's the whole entire year. I started there late because my relative had assistance from another relative. They helped pay my tuition because at that school at the time, it was a private Christian school. You had to pay tuition. It wasn't free like the public school. So when I transferred to Cooley, whatever, my relative was trying to get me in like an Ivy League public school, but they found out you had to take a test. And because they didn't know this at the time, when the student is in middle school, you have to have it in advance. And they say generally they only accept transfers from athletes generally of that regard who are allowed to transfer as late as their freshman to sophomore year or whatever. But after that, my junior and senior year, I was on the honor roll. I believe I was what do you call not magna cum laude, summa cum laude, or one of those cum laudes. I was up there. I got as high as a little over 3.5 GPA. Then when I started college at Davenport, I didn't do that well at first because I wasn't trying to try. I transferred from DeVry Institute of Technology in Columbus, Ohio, where we were required to build a robot. That was one of our requirements. They would go over with all the new students at the time. That school eventually became DeVry University, but at the time it was called DeVry Institute of Technology. It was a private school, and by the way, they were sued. They settled a lawsuit with some students that went there, by the way, for some of the scheming that was going on with, people coming out having to pay these high student loan debts because these private colleges or for-profit schools were expensive and giving false advertisement, and it was putting people in debt too as well. So within my major at Davenport, I was a 3.5, and I just got my associate's degree. I took credits towards my bachelor's. I didn't finish. I did go back to check. I was 13 classes away from a bachelor's degree, so I know I would have accomplished it with a piece of cake. But I learned with this information, I learned more important information than what college taught. Keep in mind, college and grade school only teaches you what they want you to know in the public sector. It doesn't teach you the real information that you're supposed to know out here. So keep that in mind. I know this is real late video, but this is some action-packed information I'm sharing with you guys. That's why I said, please check out Pastor Lindsey Williams if you haven't. Especially his DVD called Secrets of the Elite. If it's still on YouTube, you might still be able to watch it for free. Some other good documentaries is one in particular. A lot of people may still have questions about the dinar. Please check out Change is on the Horizon. It's called Change is on the Horizon. Please check that documentary out. Another one, of course, that deals with the banking system that provides substantial evidence dealing with history is please check out Money Masters and Monopoly Men. Those are two excellent documentaries. They both complement each other very well, go over action-packed information. I think some people out there still don't get it. There's newbies out there that are still waking up, but this information will provide credibility into a lot of different things that people might be really surprised about, that they were not aware that actually really existed. See if I can adjust this light sort of to get, is that better? Nah, let's see. Okay, so see if I can go over some more action-packed information for you guys. Also books too, by the way. Check out David Icke's books, one in particular called Children of the Matrix. Really need to, if you're curious, or if you're on the fringe about, if you're wondering if Pizzagate was real or stuff like that, Icke was talking about this years ago, and he interviewed people just like when you're in high school or college. You have an English class and they require you to do a research paper, and your teacher, you have to cite your sources. This shows credibility, where you got your information from, like fact check. Did it come from what book did it come from? Was it a magazine? Was it a newspaper article? You have to quote the specific section so they know, or the college or university or school that you're going to knows that there's not plagiarism. Like when you see these Grammarly commercials on YouTube nowadays, because of the technology, we can cross-reference, but back then, we had to do it more manually. But there were some instructors were hip to people like cheating or whatever. But what I like is Icke provides a bibliography at the end of all of his books. Just like a research paper, you cite your sources, which is very important. This shows credibility, in case you're wondering. by the way. So went over that, but check out not just Children of the Matrix was a good book, but some of his other books in the series were also excellent as well. Some other good alternative media platforms to check out, some content creators. I haven't checked yet to see if Gab.ai is coming back because they were under attack, but Minds.com is a good one. Excellent platform to get off YouTube, get off Facebook and the Twitters, and build these other platforms up because of all the censorship and the biases with you know, the platforms such as Twitter and YouTube, the collusion that they've actually been involved with, which is, you know, violation of freedom of speech, violation of antitrust laws. And I found out Comcast, the big cable company and does other stuff, tech giant, has been in repeated violations of a lot of antitrust laws. And I found out they own NBC, by the way, just like Disney is like over ABC. So keep in mind, there's like 4 mainstream media outlets. That's why they're controlled. By the way, this is credible. You know, look this up. Look up Viacom. Look up Google's parent company, Alphabet. These are like super conglomerate. It's not a coincidence. These are monopolies. It's a reason why a government came up with antitrust laws to have fair competition. So big corporations, big tech giants weren't bullying people, you know, like Apple, Tim Cook, and some of these other companies are doing, because journalism is supposed to be unbiased and report all the information that, you know, you have big stories that don't get reported on. This is why I'm going over. Check out BitChute. If BitChute should still be around. DTube is another platform. There's another one called Real.video. Check out Real.video. I believe the name got changed or went over to Brighteon.com. Check out Brighteon.com, Real.video. Some of the people that have been illegally banned, or illegal, I'm gonna say illegally because it was illegal, what Twitter and Facebook did with this censorship. A lot of times people don't know these were discriminatory practices. Freedom of speech is, I had teachers that talked about this even in high school and college. You just couldn't yell fire in a movie theater, but just because you might not like someone's freedom of speech, that is their freedom of speech that they have. And these were direct violation of antitrust laws. And in some instances, when one bigger media organization, such as the CNN, tries to lobby to have a smaller or another media organization shut down, legally, that is torturous interference, which is another violation of the law. They're in violation, and that's misconduct, especially with this Jim Acosta thing. They want to cry foul, but look what they were one of the main ones lobbying to have Alex Jones kicked off the air. So with that being said, I want to thank you guys for joining me. Until next time, take care.